Hello ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Just Do It Yourself channel, and in this video we will replace rear brakes on this 2010 Cadillac Escalade pickup truck. So I have my truck jacked up and on a jack stand, so next we'll remove the wheel. First you need to remove the hubcap, so just take your plastic tool, trim removal tool to get that off. Next I'll get the wheel off. It's 22mm socket, and I will leave the links to all the tools and parts that you might need in the description to the video, so please check those out. So I'm using 1/2" Milwaukee impact. It was almost 1500 foot-pound loosening torque. If you use this manual ratchet, it's probably a good idea to get your lug nuts loose on the ground. So next you want to grab a pry bar and just spread your brake pads a bit, so when it comes to removing the caliper, it's not tight on the rotor. Next we will undo the two 13mm bolts caliper on the caliper sliding pins, one here and one just underneath. So it's hard to fit impact in here, but it's not too difficult to do it with the ratchet. So to hold it, you will need either 13/16 or I think it's like 20mm. So get that loose, and then we can just switch to a smaller. Same scenario on the bottom one. So here's the bottom one. You can see there was some thread locker, and before you remove the top one, make sure that you have a piece of wire or a bungee cord so you can hang your caliper and don't stress the hose too much. Just get that loose. As soon as you break that thread locker, this is supposed to come off quite easily. I just have a piece of wire, so I'll pull this caliper off and I'll just hang it like this. Next, before I forget and get too excited about all the new parts, I'll take a file and we'll clean the piston. This one actually looks quite well. There's no major rust. And now we can retract the piston back, since with the newer pads we will need way more room. And I will try to remove one of the old pads. As you can see, there's not much left. Actually, there's nothing left of the braking material. So we'll just put it in here so we can use our C-clamp. Just spread it a bit more. And slightly more. That's good. So now, at this point, you want to open your brake fluid reservoir, since you will be pushing the fluid back into it, and also keep an eye so it doesn't overflow. I'm also changing the brake fluid while I'm doing those brakes, so my reservoir is almost half empty, and the lid is off at this point. So we'll push this back in all the way. And last thing that you want to do with your caliper while it's off, again grab a file and clean these two surfaces where it hits the outer brake pad. We will apply some anti-seize, but we just want to make sure that there is no major rust or mud stuck. So we should be good now. We'll try to push this caliper out of the way so we can work on the caliper bracket. So next we need to remove those two 18mm bolts. They're quite tight, so you might need a longer ratchet to do that. So I have my ratchet on the top bolt. And as I said, they've been torqued to 120 foot-pounds, so they will be tight, and usually they should have some thread locker on them too. So you need to break that adhesive. Okay, so those two bolts are removed, and they were quite tight on this side. The other side was much easier. Anyway, so now we should be able just to slide out this black bracket. And next thing, what we want to do, we want to make sure that those two surfaces are clean of any rust and debris. That's where it hits the frame, and also over there where the all the hardware goes and the pad slide, we want to clean also this nicely, though you need to make sure that we don't damage those rubber seals, those rubber boots over there. So we will get it nicely wire brushed on the bench. To get the rotor off, you need to remove those two clips that just basically hold the rotor in place so it doesn't falls off. This clip sits on a stud, and there is no thread at the very end, so if you will be just spinning it, it will be spinning in the same place. So you kind of need to pull it out and spin at the same time so it can kind of catch the thread, and after it does, you should be able to kind of just screw it off. So if you don't have new lock washers like that, just need to be patient and screw them off so you can save them and reuse them. Okay, so now when those two lock washers are removed, we will try just a few slams with the hammer, and make sure that you are in safety glasses at this point, since there is lots of rust will be flying around. But if this doesn't help, there are two holes where we can put bolts and push the rotor that way. Seems to be quite solid. Okay, seems like it got loose. And also, one thing to know, to make sure that your parking brake are released, since they would hold the drum in place. But if you look, it doesn't look like those parking brake been applied recently, so not a worry in this case. So while you're in here, you want to check for any seal leaks on the axle, and also try apply how much it moves in and out. Like this one is fine. The other side has bad leak, and also it moves probably like 1/4 inch in and out. So we'll be looking into that later on. But at this point, we'll just clean all the dust, all the debris from here, as well as we want to clean this surface. So to get all the dust off, we will use compressed air. Make sure that you wear face mask, because you don't want to breathe this in. To get the rest of the hub, we will use a die grinder and wire wheel. It kind of fits everywhere. So the hub is nice and clean, and now we can move to the bench and work on the caliper. Okay, so I have wire brushed the area on the caliper where the pads go, and also where it attaches to the knuckle. So next, what you want to do, you want to grab a file and actually get this filed off, since there's quite a bit of bigger chunk of rust, and the wire brush make it shiny, but it doesn't take it off. So over here you want to make sure that that surface is nice and flush, so you can remove that all dust and rust. So now all those surfaces are smoothed out, we can take a look at the sliding pins. Alright, with the caliper pins, you want to first try if they move freely, and luckily those do, though they feel quite dry. So we will grab a pick and we will remove this boot, and you can see they are indeed quite dry. I would like to pull that boot out, just like that. And the same to this one. Just slide the boot off. You can see that that grease started to harden, but though they were still free and they are not in too bad condition, if your gets seized, stuck, most likely that you will need new boots too. But for those one, I'll just put some brake clean inside, and we'll use a little wire brush like this, and we'll just go inside and clean them. Was like when we had a really bad case, maybe the boot was cracked and it's all solid, hardened inside. I would actually take this brush, attach it to the drill, and just brush it until you don't see any dirt coming out, and do same with the pin. So those pins are not bad at all. I'll just put some brake clean on the top, paper towel, and just wipe them off. You will see that they are still in quite nice shape. If yours are rusted, you will need to take a fine sandpaper and grind all that rust off, so they are nice and shiny and they can move freely, because if they seize, if they cannot move, your brakes won't work well and they will wear out much faster than they're supposed to. Okay, so now I'll just grab this bracket, turn it upside down above the catch pan, and we'll wash it with the brake clean even more. So those caliper holes are all clean now. I'll just dry them out with some compressed air. just to make sure that there is no brake clean left. Next, I'll need to apply some grease to those pins, and we use silicone high temperature brake grease. So you don't want to put too much since there is limited room in that hole. So we want to cover entire surface of the pin, but you don't want to over apply it, so it will create resistance for the pin. So now we can see that it goes in all the way, and it's important to check. So do the same thing for the other one. Just apply some grease. Slide it in. Try to go such way that that boot does not remove all the grease. So now I'll just clean wherever was the rag soaked with the inner brake clean, and check if it goes all the way in. It does. Perfect. Next we will apply just a tiny bit of grease where those pin hardware will sit. You don't want to put too much, since if there's too much, most likely it will end up on your rotors when you put the caliper on. But you want to apply just enough so the moisture does not get in. As we all know, in order to corrode, we need moisture, water, and oxygen. So if we can eliminate water by applying grease, we can keep it away from corrosion, at least for a while. So now I'll just put those hardware pieces in, and I will do same thing. Just apply some grease where the pads will be sliding. I wouldn't say that this is must, since those hardware pieces, those plates, have chrome coating on them, and they're supposed to last. But I think it won't hurt. I always had a good luck with applying some grease versus not. I never had a problem, so I will do. And now you just want to go from inside where your rotor goes and catch any extra grease, just to make sure that nothing gets on the rotor. So I have my brake pads here, and I will leave a link in the description to the video so you can buy them online. I have cleaned all those bolts. Now I'll just apply some blue thread locker to those bolts, big and small, since we saw for sure that it was applied before. Okay, so next we want to clean our rotors. They usually come from the factory coated with oil, just to prevent corrosion while in storage and transport. So you wanna use a bunch of brake clean spray, grab a towel, clean with a towel. And you can use a hub as assistant. So now we can put it this way. Clean it again. Make sure that there is no grease left. Next we will apply anti-seize to the hub, as we already discussed. In order for this to get a corrosion happening, we need moisture to get in, and if we cover everything in anti-seize, there is very small chance that moisture will get in. And also it's quite important to make sure that this surface is nice and clean. There is no rust, no debris, no grease, because if there is some big particles stuck to the hub and your rotor doesn't sit well on it, you will get bad vibration while braking. So make sure that this is nice and clean before you install your rotor. So now we will try to put the rotor on. There is a chance that we might need to adjust park and brake pads, but I don't think they've been spread too much, so they shouldn't create us an issue. And as you can see, the rotor moves freely, so we would not worry about adjusting those at this point. So next we'll put those lock washers, and you can put on any opposite studs. That should hold it in place. Another quick note: before you put your caliper on, grab the file and make sure that those surfaces where the caliper goes on, they are clean. There's no rust. This one wasn't that clean, so if you get rust in between, our caliper bracket won't be line up, and it will create issues down the road. So now we can start bolting our caliper bracket. Now when the bolts are nice and clean without thread locker, they go in way easier. As a quick reminder, those are 18mm bolts, and we will torque it to 120 foot-pounds. This one, oh come on, as well as the bottom one. My apologies, my phone battery died. So I have put the brake pads in, nothing too difficult. One thing to note, there is that metal plate in this one, so it has to be on the inside pad pointing up. And also I applied some anti-seize on the caliper, on the piston, and also on those two surfaces that will be touching the pad itself. So now we can put the brake caliper back on. Just remove this wire away. We need to compress those sliding pins and slide the caliper on. Our bolts are nice and clean with some blue Loctite. So we'll get those in, and we will torque them to 30 foot-pounds. So we'll just use 3/8 inch torque wrench, and I will leave a link, Amazon link, in the description to the video. So that is torqued. So last thing would be to pump your brakes, since your piston is compressed right now, so you need to bring those pads closer to the rotor. So get in the cab, hit the brakes probably at least 5 times until you feel hard pedal under your foot, and whenever you roll out of the shop, test it. If your brakes work well, they probably will be more touchy than before, or if you mess something up, they might not work at all. So don't go on the road right away, test. Thanks for watching. Please check the description to the parts and tools for links, and as always, just do it yourself.